Now, y'all didn't think I wasn't going to do another installment of the Campy horror movie series, did you? Bobby Lee, this one's for you. What's up, everybody? Nick here at the Lost River Drive-In, and today I'm going to give you 10 more campy horror movies that I love, and I am unashamed to love. And I'm going to start this one off with a banger. One that you either, have a fondness for this movie, or you've never understood it and you hate it, and there's really no in between. And that's Leprechaun. Look, I remember, I've told this story on the podcast before, but I remember growing up, the Leprechaun never scared me, but he scared my older brother. And my mom used to always walk around the house saying, "I'm the Leprechaun," for no reason, I guess just to try to scare my brother. This was a movie that I had a fondness for when I was a little kid. While it never scared me, I just felt the movie was so fun. Warwick Davis is great in the role. Jennifer Aniston. This is like one of those movies that she probably never wants to talk about, like McConaughey with Texas Chainsaw or Paul Rudd with Halloween 6. It's like one of those earlier horror movie roles that you're just like, yeah, that didn't happen. But Jennifer Aniston should wear this as a badge of honor because Leprechaun is a really, really fun movie. And you can say what you want about the sequels, and believe me, I'm right there with you, but this is a good time. Next up is going to be Cabin in the Woods from 2011. Now, I've talked about this movie before and how I had such a weird relationship with this movie. Because when it came out, I had no interest. I thought it looked like a cheap ripoff of The Evil Dead. And I was like, no thanks, I have The Evil Dead. I don't need this. Didn't see it in theaters. Blind bought it about a year later after it came out, and I loved it. And I was happy to see that it wasn't a cheap ripoff. It actually was poking fun at that. And I thought, oh, this is really cool. You get into stuff with mermen and zombies and mythical creatures. Pretty sure there's a unicorn? Yeah, there's a unicorn. Wild. The movie's a really, really fun time. It's a bloody fun time. It's got some great performances in here. Sigourney Weaver's in here. Bradley Whitford's hilarious in the movie. The movie's awesome. Cabin in the Woods, if you guys have not seen this movie, you have got to see it. Normally, I don't like to double dip on one franchise in a series of installments. Well, that's not true. I did that last time. So I'll do it again. Evil Dead 2. This is my favorite Evil Dead movie. This is when Evil Dead really started to go hard into the camp. And now it reached its apex in Army of Darkness. But Evil Dead 2 walked that line of camp and horror and slapstick, and it did it brilliantly. Evil Dead 2 has some moments in it that are genuinely frightening and creepy and unsettling, like Henrietta. And then it has some moments that are supposed to be frightening, I guess, but they're more or less just so over the top they're kind of funny. And then there's moments that are just genuinely supposed to be funny, like when a lamp is laughing at you. I mean, there's a lot about this movie that is just so campy and great, and I don't know how anybody could not like this movie. I get it, Army of Darkness might be a little too hardcore into the camp for you, but I think this one is just spooky enough with enough goofiness to really be the perfect blend. So yes, it's my favorite Evil Dead film, but I also think it's one of the better campy horror films out there. Next up is going to be a movie that I actually didn't watch till a couple years ago, and I got turned on to it by my buddy Christian, and you guys know this is his favorite horror movie, so you already know what I'm about to say. Return of the Living Dead. Return of the Living Dead is my favorite zombie movie. And I think it's because it strikes the perfect balance for me. A lot of these zombie movies never really scared me all that much growing up because I just thought, dude, I could survive this. I really could. And honestly, as a person, I don't know what this says about me, but I've always thought if there's an apocalypse, I want it to be a zombie apocalypse because I truly feel like I could survive that. Really wouldn't be that hard, I don't think. Especially if they're just walkers, If we're just talking walkers here, oh, whatever. If it's The Walking Dead, I'm good. You'd have to worry about other people more than you would the actual zombies. But The Return of the Living Dead is just one of those movies that, it has some great zombie, over-the-top gore, some memorable characters like Tarman, but it's also just super campy and goofy. It's funny. It's not a movie that I think is really trying to terrify you, although there are some creepy scenes. It really is just fun and zany. And I think that is why I grew to like this movie so much. And you won't find me putting a lot of zombie movies in my rotation, but this is one of them. I really think this is a fun time, and I think it warrants a spot on this list. Next up is going to be a movie that I think a lot of people would honestly put more in horror. But I think anytime there's a sequence where a kid doing a, spinning kick and yelling pancakes before he bites someone, there's definitely some comedy. And especially in the first half of this movie, it's pretty like dark comedy. And that's Cabin Fever. I remember the first time I watched Cabin Fever, and the things I came away from it with were, I don't want to drink tap water ever, please God no, which obviously have since then, but it made me scared of tap water. Pancakes and shaving your legs. Those are the three things that I walked away from this movie with. So when I think about this movie, there's enough like goofy moments that warrant a laugh, and there's also a lot of like really uncomfortable sequences, like the sequence where she is shaving her legs. And there's also just some absolutely disgusting imagery. So whether you want to call it like a dark comedy horror movie, I don't really know what you want to call it, but I'm going to consider it a campy horror movie, and I'm going to put it on this list because I saw this movie at like 9 years old, and my mom didn't know what she was getting herself into when she rented it, and we were going to watch it as a family. We'll never forget the multiple times she did this to my eyes as we were watching it. I'm like I've never seen boobs before. And the movie just stuck with me, so Cabin Fever definitely makes this list. Now, the next one is going to be one that I think a lot of people would probably... I feel like if you just look at it at face value, you'd probably put it more in horror, but if you actually go back and watch this movie, it's definitely a campy movie, and that's Fright Night. Now, I'm a fan of this series. Always have been. I like Fright Night 2. I like the remake. I just do. I don't like Fright Night 2, The New Blood. No, that movie, no thanks. But, which I own, surprisingly. But I think the original Fright Night is also like a perfect blend of horror and comedy. I think it's zany. I mean, Evil Ed by himself brings this movie up to a level that it just would never reach without him. I think that Chris Sarandon as Jerry Dandridge at times is kind of over the top and corny in this movie in a good way. I think Fright Night is one of those vampire movies that like everybody reveres, and rightfully so, but they don't revere it in the way that they would like The Interview with a Vampire or, Lost Boys. It is definitely more comedy, although Lost Boys has comedy too, so I don't really know what I'm saying there, but you get my point. Fright Night is definitely a campy horror movie. It is definitely one that you look back on fondly. There's some laughs, there's some corny 80s things in it, and there's some great horror elements, so I feel like it's got to make this list. Next up is going to be a movie in this franchise that has really moved its way up the ranks for me and is probably top 3, if not top 2 in this series, and I mean that. That's A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Look, The Dream Master is Dream Warriors on steroids, in the sense that Dream Warriors was just realistic enough while also introducing fantastical over-the-top elements, and Dream Master says, oh yeah, we're doing that times 10. I mean, Freddy gets resurrected by a dog pissing fire on his bones. That, in and of itself, tells you what kind of movie you're in. This is peak MTV Freddy, and I love this movie. I think the effects in this movie are great. I think a lot of the characters, although, the Dream Warriors get killed off pretty unceremoniously in the beginning, whatever, As Ellie Cornell said regarding Halloween 5, if you're coming back for a sequel, you're probably not going to survive. And we just have to accept that nowadays, You come back for the sequel, you're probably going to die unless you're the lead. Dream Master is a really fun movie. It's got the perfect spirit of Freddy. I think that this is when Freddy was really hitting his stride with Dream Warriors and Dream Master. And I just think that the movie is so memorable and so of its time that watching this movie is almost like putting you back in a time capsule to the 1980s. And I feel like when I watch this movie, I almost know what it was like to be a teenager in the 1980s, even though I wasn't a teenager in the 1980s. So The Dream Master absolutely has to make this list. I feel like it's a crime if it doesn't. Next up is going to be one that is more comedy than it is horror. I'll never argue with you there, but technically it is a comedy horror movie, and it's kind of a campy horror movie because of that. Zombieland. I remember when Zombieland came out, I was like, okay, not a big zombie fan, but Woody Harrelson, Jesse Eisenberg, Emma Stone, I'm in. I liked the cast. I liked the trailers. It looked really fun and funny. And it is. I mean, you get some great gore in this movie. Like, there are some great kills. But this movie is genuinely hilarious. Like, the first time you watch this movie, how can you not find this movie funny? Like, I genuinely get to a point sometimes when talking about certain movies where I'm like, I feel like I can't trust you as a person if you can't see this movie for what it is. And Zombieland is one of those movies that it is just so fun and over the top while also having enough elements of being a horror film that you just it's one of those comfort movies. You know, it can be any time of year, and I can pop in Zombieland and have a really good time. And I really like the sequel Double Tap as well. I think it just recaptured the energy of the first movie perfectly, and I'm still hoping for a third movie. So Zombieland absolutely is also going to be on this list. Now, this next one might be controversial because I know there's a lot of people that really have a fondness for this series. I never really have. Even though I grew up watching these movies because they came out in the 90s, it never really connected with me like it did with others, but I do respect it. And the next one is I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Sometimes I wonder if I like this one better than the first one, and I know that might be blasphemy to say because the first one is like absolutely the better movie, but I feel like the second one is so much more fun, even if just for like some of the characters, like Jack Black's character in the movie. I think that there's like enough moments of comedy and levity in this movie. There's enough moments of just implausibility where you're just like, okay, that's, that it takes this movie into kind of a new subgenre almost. Like the first movie was your typical slasher movie, and it's good at what it does. This movie is a whodunit slasher movie as well, but at the same time, it's also kind of funny. It's a comedy at times. I really like that about this movie. Now, like I said, honestly, if you're going to make me choose, I think the first one is better than the second one, but the second one is absolutely far more campy. So if I'm talking campy horror movies, I've got to put I Still Know What You Did Last Summer on this list. All right, screw it. I'm double dipping again. Said I wasn't going to do it. I've done it twice now. I'm doing it again. To cap this off is going to be Piranha 3 Double D. Look, I love Piranha 3D. It's my favorite Piranha film, period. Yeah, I like it better than the original film. Would Piranha 3 Double D match up to Piranha 3D? No, it's just nowhere near as good of a movie. There's a lot of issues with it. Having said that, this movie's a freaking blast. Okay, you get Ving Rhames. Pretty sure he has like a shotgun leg. Like, I'm pretty sure. I haven't watched the movie in a while, but I'm pretty sure he has a shotgun leg. David Hasselhoff as a lifeguard, an ineffectual lifeguard, hilarious, at a water park. Piranha making their way into a water park. And like 8 times the D's. Let's just say that. Piranha 3 Double D is in no way a good movie at all. But is it fun? Yeah. Is it something that just like, you can't watch this movie and not have a fun time? Yeah, this is that kind of movie. Piranha 3 Double D is not a movie, just by its title and poster alone, is asking for you to take it seriously. You should not. And I love it for that. So Piranha 3 Double D is absolutely going to round out the 10 on this video. But I want to know down below, guys, what do you think of the 10 campy horror movies I picked this time around? Do you agree with them? Are there still some I haven't mentioned that you'd like me to mention? Discuss anything and everything down below in the comments section. Leave a like on this video. I see you watching. Leave a like. Subscribe to the channel already. Why haven't you? It's literally right there. You're hovering the mouse over it. Just do it. Just do it. It makes me feel good about myself. Sometimes. Guys, thank you so much. This is Nick from the Lost River Drive-In, and I am pulling out.